You're listening to Creative Campfire, where creatives like you come to talk shop, share stories, and light the path for one another. Whether you're here to learn, grow, or feel a little less alone, welcome to the fire. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Fire. I'm really excited to bring this super creative, who also is a big sports fanatic, to the show today. I met him because I was not scrolling Instagram, I was scrolling LinkedIn. My other favorite place to hang out and see what other creators are up to, see what's going on in the marketplace, see what's going on in industry. And I saw this post and I was like, holy cow, this is the coolest thing I've seen in a really long time. It really touched on my love of sport, my love of graphic design, color, build, creative directors just doing really cool shit. And I reached out to Jordan and said, hey, can you come on the show and talk to us about why you saw a gap in the market around fantasy games and why you had to fill it with this awesome idea. So welcome to the show, Jordan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Like I said, I remember scrolling and all of a sudden I was like, what is this? Oh my God. And then I did a deep dive into like who you are and what you're up to. And I was like, wow, this guy's like worked at Ubisoft and EA Games and like has done all these really cool projects. Where does your love of sport meet design?
I guess it's always been around. So my love of design is front and center of everything that I do all of the time. So if I've got a side interest in sports, design's going to creep its way into there. I've got a huge interest in gaming, so design always gets into there. But if there's anything in my life that I've got a vague interest in, there's going to be a way to like inject design or creativity into or on top of it somehow.
That's cool. Give us, just for the folks that like haven't seen and gotten to read your bio, give us a little mini, like a 2-minute synopsis of like, how did that path happen? How did you end up, going down design? Was that from an early age all the way through your studies to today, or just kind of like happenstance?
Of course. Well, I've always liked drawing. I think that was probably the origin story of a lot of designers or creatives. I just spent my whole childhood pencil in hand, drawing Ninja Turtles for the first 11 years of it. But yeah, I happened to just try to pursue being an artist or something as a career from young, and got steered down the path of, hey, you can do what you do with pencils, but with typography and laying out images. And around that time, I was just getting into computers a lot, and the internet was blossoming, and like the idea that I was able to make my own websites just like really took me. So just started to put the two together. So in school, I was putting together websites for my rap crew, and we were putting together websites for all sorts of things, just hosting our work online. And I just got the bug. I just wanted to make and create things for other people to see. And the internet was the best way to do that. And I just pursued that relentlessly, went to university and just like, I want to do web design or creativity on the internet, and followed that as hard as I could. And that took me on a career that went from advertising to digital website making through to more product design as that became a thing, and then into the brand world ultimately. Never really staying in one place. I knew I just wanted to get ideas out there and craft them. So I've been a designer or an art director or a creative director or a UX designer. But yeah, all in common is just wanting to make cool shit and put it out there for the world to see.
I love that. I love this idea of continuing to explore that range. You talk about when you were just kind of drawing and then realizing like there's a whole world to it, right? That design comes in many shapes and forms, from typography and colors. And then just like you said, like UX has its own like style of design that can get layered on, which then adds to those brand stories. Is there a particular project in your past that you're just like, wow, this is like the best ever? This is like encompasses like everything I've ever loved and more? Or is it the current project?
It's quite an old one, but I always look back at it as like that is where I found really my stride and what I really enjoyed. It was working with Google on their first step into hardware. I think they were making the Nexus phone back then, or the first time they'd really got into that universe. And they wanted to make physical cases for their phones. And came to the studio I was at the time and asked us, how do we make a digital experience that feels googly? It has everything that a Chrome experiment has. You can mess around with it, you can play with it, but ultimately make a physical object that connects with your device. And I kind of had free reign back then to just experiment with web technologies, make something that was fun to use, felt Google in its use of technology, but then you could produce something at the end. So we played with maps technology, and we played with a lot of their photo gyroscopic things in the phone to like paint in 3D spaces to then print onto your device. But it was a real experimentation time, working with creative technologists, working with designers and engineers, just to make something that combined like everything I loved, like its technology and coolness and creativity. But at the end of the day, like you put it in somebody's hands, like it's not lost to web archives. And I saw a couple of people with the case in real life, and I was like, oh, that felt really nice. And this must have been a decade or so ago, but I still look back at that as a time where I was like, okay, this is what I want to do all of the time.
Yeah, how fun is it when it's like an actual turns into like a physical product and you get to see it in the world? I mean, I don't think that ever gets lost on the creative where it's like it's no longer a pixel on the screen. It lives in our tangible world.
Well, for designers working in packaging and print, it kind of sounds like that's their day to day. But for me, I was in pixels. Your website has a limited run, a web campaign will die, and it's gone. Maybe you took good enough screen recordings of it to live on, but so much of the work that I produce, and for it's good that this happens, it perishes. Like, and you need to reinvent and come with something new. So for something to leak from a very digital world into real life is nice. It's a good tick box.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the fantasy world, let's talk about how, I mean, are you an avid fantasy game player? You know, are you someone who gets in and plays, you know, I don't know, there's like a fantasy for almost every sport now, probably even checkers. So I'm just kind of curious, like you talked about the, you know, your love of gaming. Let's talk about that side now. Like, how did you get into gaming and what is it about it that you love?
Absolutely. I mean, I was where most of my life had a pencil in hand. The other half is a controller. I was always in the space of gaming, very often sports gaming. So FIFA for years and years, that was the number one go-to game. But it was always how I consume stories and media was always through gaming before films or literature. It was gaming first. So it's always been a strong influence on what I want to do and what I want to create for is that universe. Lucky enough, I had a lot of opportunities to work with gaming clients, with Ubisoft, EA, and Crafton on their brand worlds, and a couple of opportunities to work on games themselves. So combining that with design has always been a keen interest, and any opportunity I saw to explore and get into that world more, I absolutely took and jumped at. So kind of queued up an opportunity to explore fantasy gaming, and an idea that I had in my pocket for years and years and years, but the opportunity arose to hop into that, really commit some time and energy to creating this vision of a game that I had, and technology had got to a point that enabled me to actually do it. So yeah, for sure, it was a really good combination of all of my interest in sports and gaming and design, really nicely lining up for this project.
So you just mentioned that this idea had been kind of sitting in the pocket or maybe simmering on the back burner for a long time. What moved it to the front of the line? You know, what was kind of that tipping point? I mean, you did just mention like, you know, tools that are available now. So is that one of the things that you were like, oh, I actually can like bring this idea to fruition because the technology is kind of matched up with what I need?
That was probably one of the biggest prompts to get into it. Was this file was on my hard drive, and I refused to put it in a subfolder. It lived at the top level of my hard drive, and I'd scroll past it so often. And it was an old PSD file that like was so clunky, but I'd scroll past it all the time and be like, one day, I think that's still a great idea. And it was just one screen of an interface of choosing players. So I'd always scroll past it, always in my mind. And then vibe coding really took off. So for quite a while, I was using AI tools to write creative code, mostly just like short bits, like trying to write some processing or just like a little bit of JavaScript. But it really matured to the point of sophistication to be like, okay, I could probably do this myself. I don't need to bug a friend to trust me and jump on this long process to build this game from scratch. I'll take it on. And all of the conversation around AI's ability to write this level of sophisticated product just encouraged me to like take a leap. If it fails, it fails. You try again in another couple of years. But no, it is incredibly rewarding to see the opportunity and to have the technology available for next to nothing to dive into this and explore.
Just having the time, right? That's the trade-off. And you don't have to cash in all your favorite chips with all of your friends. So talk to us a little bit about this idea. What is it, and what is fundamentally different about this style of fantasy game versus like what you see with other traditional fantasy games that are out there?
Lovely. So this idea was all about making it's based on football or soccer, and it's primarily around rewarding people who really care about the game. So classically, there's one big fantasy Premier League game, and everyone plays it. It is the market leader, for good reason. It's a very, very deep and smart product with all of the right licensing. But it looks at one league. My interest in football isn't contained to one league or one team. I have an interest in lots of leagues, League One and Championship to La Liga and Bundesliga. I want to consume football and follow my favorite players around the world. Like when a Brit goes to play abroad, I've got a new love for that team out there. So I wanted a game that reflected my interest in the sport, which isn't ring-fenced by licensing deals. It's more about following the game wherever it's played and loving the best thing about the sport is really focused on like the headlines. So the game is fantasy football, but looking at the top 5 leagues around Europe and focusing on one thing, goals only. Because it's when I play it every year, the big fantasy football game, and I play it avidly for the first month or so, but it's the micromanagement of so many data points, looking at who to triple captain in case they get more interceptions or key passes one game or clean sheet. Stuff that I didn't really care about. I want to see the big performers, the superstars, the goals. Very easy to track metric where I can be like, yeah, this player in Syria is having a blinding season. I want to follow that a little bit more and get all of my points in from that top goal scorer. And that's how I love football. And I wanted to build a game that reflected exactly my love of the sport.
I think you're obsessed with strikers. That's all I have to say. Like no love lost against the goalies or the defense line, right? But you're all about the forwards.
That's it. That's the headline. That's the exciting part that I wanted to just like capture. And it's not about only loving strikers, but it's like where can we make a game with a mechanic that's what you see is what you get. It's not -2 points because they picked up a yellow. We're looking at a very clean way to play the game, to consume it. So it's quicker to pick up and put down. It's less time in the scraping through data sheets and getting all of the ins and outs of analytics that you start to see around. Just give it to me simple and give it to me in a fun way. And I think capturing that has been a really fun way to build a game around.
I 100% agree with you. I think that one of the things I'm sure, I mean, you just touched on this, but I've noticed since growing up, I grew up in a very sports forward home. and my dad was a bit of a statistician. And the amount of statistics now that come out from sport, I don't care what sport it is, from cricket to baseball and soccer to football, track and field, the data points are like insane. And it's like they track every like minute thing. It's like how many left-footed passes has he, made up the field to the right, behind him or, to the left of him. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care how many connected passes they made. I don't care how many balls he's headed, And so like as someone who like I love sport and I love following the game, I don't want to sit in a fantasy game and, like you said, like tick all those boxes and have to like read like the deep analysis of every game to be like, yeah, I want to make sure that I move this slider or check that box. So I really appreciate that. It's a more like, it's like an easier way to play and be involved and stay up to date with like what's going on. And more than anything, like it brings exposure to more of the sport around the world rather than just playing Premier or Champions League or whatever, like you said, license, that it is.
Yeah, I don't see it as a replacement for those. I see it as you run both. That's how I play it. I've got one for getting in deep and really concentrating on the Premier League. I feel like this is a nice, almost companion app for watching games or just like catching up at the end of the weekend on everything that's gone around. Seeing those players that are having a blinding season that you wasn't quite aware of. So yeah, hopefully it's got all the fun. It's not an enemy of stat crunching. I love what SofaScore do in their global score. It takes in so many data points from every game and it really gives you a neat way of consuming somebody's performance overall. I'd love for it to feel like that. This is simplification for game's sake, but the love of the sport. It's not just for beginners, it's like for people who just love the game.
Yeah. So let's tie in the love of the game with the love of design. So give us how this nugget of an idea of like the simplification really crafted this visual world that you built. So from like the product design and the background and the decisions you had to make, because you're not following a client's brief, you're having to be your own brief. And I'm sure there's a little bit of, kind of getting back to that youth side of you where you had all this freedom, you could do whatever you wanted. And then you're kind of locked into briefs of clients and now you're like, ooh, I get to like do my own thing. Like, was it hard? Was that easy? Walk us through that whole design process.
The design process was the origin of it is my relationship to design in football is like so much of it is poor. I think it's leagues and leagues behind American sports for just making good looking material. That could be apparel, like often if you want to wear anything football based, it's a jersey or it's trash. So there's really bad level of sophistication for football generally. There's a couple of top clubs doing really nice design work for sure, but generally it looks a little bit naff. And that's kind of what you see in a lot of these apps. They're wedded to old systems. The studio I used to work at done the branding for the Premier League and done some really exciting work for that brand. But when it comes around to the fantasy football game, it looks green and it's purples and it's all a bit rigid and didn't look cool at all. I wanted to take a handbrake approach to that. Like, what is everything that's just bland about that world and just give it a little bit more like class and look like a product that's been made by a top sports brand rather than a football-ish brand. It was kind of the origins, just like make something that looks nice, that looks like something that I'd happily open up. It just looks like part of all of the products that I want to be interacting with, rather than one that I'm opting into because they've got the stranglehold on the industry.
So how did you decide, like, okay, so you're coming at it from this like more refined world, you're looking at what's out there, but at the same time, you have some very bold choices that you made with like the web design and the color palette and just like the sophistication that is, I'll call it, it's like simplified, right? So how did you narrow in that? Like, how did you make those design choices? And was it hard? Did you A/B test stuff? Did you ask for feedback from friends? What did that iteration process look like?
From quite early, I knew there was limitations placed upon the world that I was stepping into. The licensing of logos, player likeness, anything like that was completely restricted. I knew I couldn't step into that space, which starts to narrow off your options to be like, okay, where can I find an expression that still feels absolutely at home in football's locker, but without infringing on any lawsuits? So it's like, okay, this has to be really strong typographically and really striking in colors that it doesn't look like any particular league or any particular club. Just so that again narrows the scope down. And then just like a level of like distinction and sharpness. I went for something quite monochromatic, really dark with white typography at large scale. So it feels almost like Nike-esque. It feels like it belongs in pro sports world. And then like a really striking accent color. So experimented lots with just good readability, what looks nice on a screen, what complements wider palettes. So it landed at this really strong black and white backbone, but like this real jolt of color that carries all the way through and lifts it. It just like energizes these interactions, that it feels like really sharp where it needs to. But when you're opening up the app, it doesn't feel like a football app, which is what I really liked about it. It feels like it could be from a tech brand, like something that you're really fine-tuning your Sonos system or your Bose. It feels like cool and classy. So I wanted that universe. But then I've got these more organic touches and this photography in there that's really expressive and raw. And I wanted that combination just to like sit so lovely aside each other. So it feels considered and crafted where it needs to, but otherwise, yeah, there's good like that feeling of sports and being in there. I tried to capture through a lot of like the rougher textures and the blurry photography, stuff that's a bit more in your face.
Yeah, I mean, now that you're describing it, and for those that haven't seen it, you can head over. It's campo-v.com, right?
Yeah, Capo.
I was like, there's a dash in there. And I mean, now that you're describing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally see all that. Like, I see the big, bold graphic design that feels like a nod, like you said, like almost a nod to like classic Nike ads from like the early 90s when they used to do like the big topography or even like the big Adidas ads. And then that raw element, like the movement of the photos really does add something to it. So as you built this out, how did you get people to participate? How did you already have, I'm guessing, friends that play fantasy, people that love soccer, but like, how did you get your beta testers?
Yeah, this was something I was so nervous about, because you build it in your own echo chamber, especially when you're working just with AI, and you know how AI loves to hype you up for these things. But I was seeding it for a long time. Friends who follow football in a similar way that I do just know a lot about lots of different leagues and what's going on around Europe. So just seeding the idea with them, just bouncing things around in public a little bit, just anytime there's a good catch up, just so when it comes to like, hey, I've built this thing, do you mind hopping in, give me some early impressions, like what's missing, what would you do differently? And people were very, very eager to try it out. One, because it's their interest space, and two, because it feels new and exciting to get into a space where it's not quite finished. It's still a little bit busted, a lot of the playtesters, but together they really helped refine what it became. Just oversights on my part or things that they were very used to in other competitive apps that I didn't want to put in, but it was like, look, this is how it's played. Like, I need this extra bit of data point. But all of that factored in. It was yeah, it's fun to recruit immediate friends, start to open that circle up to some ex-colleagues, yeah, slowly bring people into, yeah, just to like refine and stress test. Because always in beta, but for the remainder of this current season, up until the World Cup, I'll still just want to test, refine, iterate. So next season can kick off from day one of European football, just to make sure that everything is tightened up and buckled.
Have you ever wanted a thinking partner, someone in your business to actually help you implement the ideas and the actions you need to take to move the needle on your business? Well, Welcome Creative Sidekick. It's our one-on-one working with you program. It's not generic, it's built around your business. You can check out all the information at creativecamp.pro/sidekick. When I moved to London, I really wanted to explore every ounce of the city, every neighborhood, every market, every little pocket of light. But I didn't want to carry my camera around my neck with a bum shoulder. Like, I really can't handle that weight. So forget carrying a giant backpack. And that's when I found the Rogue 6-liter sling. It's perfect. It fits my mirrorless EOS R Canon with a pancake lens, and I can even throw another lens in there. My 11-17 fits perfectly. And when I want to shoot something wider or need it for headshots, I can throw in my 24-105. But the thing I love most about it is, like, it doesn't scream camera bag, and it can stand up to the London rain and the beating and battleground that is the tube. It's got multiple pockets. I can fit my Oyster card in that front pocket. I can throw in my iPad or a 15-inch laptop into the secret expandable pocket, which is great for co-working and meeting up with people at cafes. And you can wear it 3 different ways. Like I mentioned, I can't wear it on my shoulder, so I can wear it as a shoulder bag. Not good for me, but I could wear it as a crossbody bag and also as a hip pack, which is really, really cool. There's a little pocket on the bottom where I can slide in an extra water bottle or umbrella, or even roll up a yoga mat and stick it in there too. I hope you'll check it out. The link is in the show notes, and it costs you nothing to click on it, but it does support the show. All right, back to our conversation. So for those that are interested, like, are you open to having other people sign up and, like, kick the tires, if you will?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I want as many people to find those corners as they can. And there's no limitations on hopping onto the website, signing up, starting playing immediately, and just seeing how it feels. What's good, what's bad, what's going on under the hood. And always open to talk about ideas with people too. So to just have that conversation about what they did and didn't like. This is all creativity and trying to express an idea before it's a final finished viable product that will ever have that payoff. It's just about, this is an idea, and putting an idea out into the world, and if people want to join me on playing that, it might also align to the way that they like to play too.
So what is the, like, as you mentioned, it covers the top 5 leagues in Europe. Is there ever, like, I don't know, maybe version 3.0 where you expand this beyond either football or bring in other, other leagues around the world?
I really liked the very first idea version of this was deep rather than wide. So it looked at just all English leagues, the same model. Like, you can pick players, build a squad out of players from all tiers of English football. And it's the idea of bringing together different groups, but leveling the scoring across them. So a goal in League Two is worth as much as a goal in the Premier League. I loved that idea of, you just build together players that you've got your ears out for. So more leagues, more competitions, bring them all together, I think would be really fun. I can imagine this being a pan sports. So if there's a good equation in place, so you can back a basketball player, rugby league player, and a football player in the same squad, and their equivalents are mapped out properly. I feel like that's the spirit of this. It's a love of sports without boundaries or borders. You just love to follow lots of things. But I think that's the heart of it. And there's no borders on it being just the top 5 leagues. That's almost an API limitation for now.
We need technology to catch up.
There we go.
So just like some fun football stuff, what's been the best goal you've seen this season?
I can say for the best singular goal,
I know, hard to pick.
and it's one where I've got flashing through my mind many, but also not wanting to crush any teams. I'm really enjoying a current top squad's underperformance in the Premier League. So most goals that go against them are my favourite goals at the moment. Yeah, no standout bangers.
Do you have a dream footballer on your squad, past or present?
For present, I mean, I really liking McTominay. McTominay's having a fantastic couple of seasons. To one of my points at the top of the show, this is about following favorite players as they go to different parts of the world and blossom in those new squads. So I really like that. I think he epitomizes what I like about following different leagues. So yeah, he was for sure the first person I put into my squad. And I'll keep him there despite having a couple of misfires recently. But it's that spirit that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes people are hot, sometimes they're cold, but, if you love the player, you got to stick with them no matter what. It's kind of like always rooting for the underdog. My husband's a big Cubs fan in baseball. And when we got together, I mean, the Cubs were the lovable losers. They never won. They never won. And then all of a sudden, like, they hit this hot streak, and then eventually they won the World Series, and everybody like went absolute bananas because they never win anything, but they have these true blue fans. And I think that goes not just for teams, but for players as well. I mean, when you have like your favorite player and they're on your favorite team, you're super excited. And then that person gets traded away, or they choose to go somewhere else, or, they get injured and they get dropped down into a different league. It's not like your love of them disappears. So I love this idea of that you get to follow these people that you became really passionate about, whether it's through that squad or you watch them from a young age come up through the system. I
Yeah,
think it's very cool.
it's the way a lot of people consume football now. We've seen it with these superstar signings, just bringing with them um, millions of fans. Like there is a new world of sports where you're signing a personality as much as a player, and that comes with, yeah, just making sure that when someone does move around the world, you're not wedded to that club and loyalty to them. It's wanting to see that player flourish elsewhere, and I think we see a lot of that in sports at the moment, and that's a little bit what's reflected in the game too. The model inside the game really punishes you for holding on to an underperforming player. They plummet in price, and you have to trade around a lot. So yeah, under the hood, there's some really aggressive market price shifts that rewards you swapping and changing your players around. So yeah, loyalty is not rewarded in this game whatsoever.
Which is kind of sad. I once was at a talk at the Brompton Bees and listening to their head of development. And it was really fascinating to listen to them talk about like why the top management had a different view of like coaches, and why they liked the philosophy of this particular coach, why they bought into it, even though the team was underperforming at the time. From the outside, if you were to see what was happening, fans were upset. They were like, this coach has to go. Why is he still here? But from an internal perspective, they had all these other data points they were looking at that were showing that the team actually was improving, that people were starting to gel, and it was just a matter of staying the course and keeping the team together so that they had time to, work out the kinks. And then you saw this rise, right? Like they're in the Premier League now. And so it took them a long time to get there, but they were like, no, we're going to stay the course. We're going to work on this thing. We're going to bring in these players. We're going to fill the gap. And they really stuck to their coaches and to for the majority part of it, like the players, which I thought was a really, like, it's a standout story because of that, right? Like they really did buy into this idea of we're going to stick to the team that we built. We know where people's strengths are. It just has to come together at the right time. And then, once you get everybody kind of mind mapped together, you have the hive, not to lean into their bees. But that was really, really cool. And then the GM came and spoke and kind of talked about like the philosophy and the embed, like how they embed all of this all the way down to like the grassroots level, to the youth level of like, one player does not make a team. A team is made up of the 11 on the field, and it takes every position to like make the team come together. And I was like, yes, it's something like I truly believe as a sports person. And, you are the sum of the parts that you're part of. And sometimes those some parts stand out more, but at the end of the day, like I was a goalie, I'm the last person on the field standing, and if they beat all of you fools on the field before they got to me, it's not my fault that they score. So yeah, I don't know. I think there needs to be like a little element of like loyalty to kind of like stick around, because not everybody has a great day on the pitch.
No, it's too often the first thing that goes, that the head coach, the manager, gets the job, and then it's a regelling process all over again. So it's there's something to be said for a little bit of patience in sport for sure.
Yeah. So When if someone has this kind of idea, right? You talked about this like sitting on the hard drive and scrolling past it for a really long time. If someone has an idea that's kind of been simmering in the background, like what is your advice to, get it off the shelf and blow off the dust?
It's there's so much that can be like just kicked down the road. And there's never a better time than yesterday because you'll wish that you'd have done it 6 months ago. So it's matured enough by now. So many things, it's just if you can make that affordance of time or energy to dip into something, it'll be paid back tenfold. And I think just explore it, try it. Done is better than perfect. Just get in and express this idea. Get it wrong. Like this is one project that I'm talking about that I like, it clicked. There's another 6 projects that I skipped through in my hard drive that might not be worth the investment, but I'll throw myself into them. I'll see what comes out. And with technology being the way it is now with AI, that there's very little barrier to just giving it a go and trying. There's so much that could have stopped me on this project, like lack of ever doing back-end coding. Like that was a huge barrier. Imagery. Like there's so much photography that I use in this experience, but this all AI generated because stock photography for sports is awful. So just finding those barriers that held me back before, like, and now having a a really affordable way to overcome them makes it like okay for time wise, okay for commitments, a little bit of side hustle time, and you can realize it and realize it to be a bad idea or a good idea. It doesn't really matter. Like it's creativity, and you just want to realize ideas that are in your head.
So you mentioned the AI tools. I'm curious. We didn't dig into the nuts and bolts of like actually like how did you build this? Where did you build it? What tools did you actually use for those that are like, okay, Jordan, spill the beans. Like, how did you actually do this?
I started this probably 2 months early. If I had have waited another couple of months, the technology would have been very clearly pointed me towards Claude. I started this before that had really taken main stage. So I was using ChatGPT in raw, like not even with the codex, like just straight into ChatGPT, copying and pasting a lot of results back. And it took me a fair bit longer than it should have done had I started a little bit later and Claude was everywhere. Having said that, so I started in ChatGPT and just like setting up the foundations for this all, steers me into the right environments, but it got a bit slow and bloated. It didn't hold knowledge between all of the threads. So I was using either Gemini or Claude to just sense check. I was like, I'm getting error after error in this. Can you just look at this through naive eyes, like find what the problem is? And combining all of these tools on just like a basic plan for ChatGPT gave me what I needed for this. But yeah, a bit of time travel, and I'd have made a better decision up front. And I think just allowed Claude to power the full experience and being plugged straight into the code base rather than so many control V's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure your control V's are a little worn out at this point. You're like, I don't even know where that key is on my keyboard.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a non-ideal process, but really try and force through my limited ability in back-end code with this tool that wasn't really perfectly meshed with it. I think hindsight and learnings for next project that I'll be able to shortcut my way through this, it will be more effective. But there's there's learnings and everything that I had to do slightly manually this time and understand the code enough to correct the code. It was a learning process, and I'm better for it, but it took me a bit longer than it needed to, for sure.
You mentioned the manual side of things. I know that there was something that I read where you said you were like manually entering the goals.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
Still doing that, a routine that at the end of the evening, I need to most days of the week have a game across Europe. So most evenings, I'll just need to hop in. I built a little admin page to input the goals to feed the system. This is all to save myself £15 a month on on the API. If the idea is proven out for next season, I'll plug in the system properly. But whilst this is experimental phase and I'm seeing if people like it or if it actually sucks, I can sacrifice a little bit of time in an evening just to update some data points.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there isn't that, it's not like it's spending hours putting in goal information.
No.
And you probably are looking anyway.
That's the thing. It's like if I'm checking out the scores, I might as well just type them into another browser. But it's the work. I think a lot of this project has been about workarounds and compromise and having what's available to me and molding the project to match the available data or the APIs that are out there or my own tech ability or even access to high-end photography. It's whilst I'm not having to compromise with a brand's guidelines or a developer's hours, the compromises and fights that I'm having are just with the worlds and the systems that are thrown at us as creatives. And I like that. Like each time I sat down, I'd get into a fight with ChatGPT because it just didn't tell me I couldn't access that data point through this API. And then having to completely rewire the game mechanics, what I thought about this game to match realities of the world. And it arrived at something really unexpected and unique because of those twists and turns that you're still collaborating and compromising and good creativity comes off the back of those things, but just with, your own demons along the way.
Well, and I think what's interesting is this idea of using a tool, right? It's like imperfectly built for this. And it's not telling you, I can't go through that API door, right? Like that door is not open to do X, Y, and Z, what you want it to do. And you not knowing, right? So there's a lot of like start and stop there to figure out like, well, why can't I access the stuff on the other side of that door?
Yeah, there was, I think, just learnings of the project is don't trust what you're told until you like triple check it with every other AI agent out there, just to make sure you're getting real results and not just being told what you need to hear. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's it. It's a little bit of technical knowledge goes a long way for just like getting through a lot of just like sorting out what's important in the data.
I mean, I think that goes for almost anything, excuse me, almost anything like with AI, right? You need something to corroborate like what you're hearing. Like you're like, oh, I got fed this information. Is this like true? Like, let me go see if I can find that myself or find another source to make sure like that is like an actual thing.
And it's worse than that. Sometimes it just gives you rubbish back, and being unable to never touching code of that shape before, there was a lot I pasted in and like built on top of, and the very foundations of everything that I'm enjoying doing is so wobbly. It's sellotaped together. There's redundancies in the tables that I've built that are very similar. And you realize that the deeper in you get, but by that time um you've built it on wobbly foundations. And I feel like that's when you think about the equivalent of AI generated design. And as a designer, you look at it and you see the wobbly foundations. There's no real grid here. Nothing's really comes from a smart place of a refined eye that has a vision of a coherent system. Much the same for my attempts at copying and pasting code together. Anyone with that experience and knowledge would be able to use it the way that AI should. I was misusing this access to the most sophisticated technology in the planet. I was absolutely misusing that trust to build something that's fun, and I think that's the heart of it all. You enjoy the process. The end result of it is a state behind the scenes, but it was just expressing an idea, and it's been a great one.
I think it's really awesome just to see the continuation of learning. Like we started this conversation with, you would love to draw, then you like learned more and more about different elements of design. And I think this is just a true extension of that, where you're just continuing to look at the new tools that are out there and how do you continue to bring like your ideas to life using the tools that are at hand. Like this story of I can use AI. It wasn't perfect. I know that it could be better and streamlined. And then as CampoV like grows and you move from more of like a beta model to a shipping model, then you can start cashing in your favors with your coding friends.
There we go. Well, I'd have to apologize pretty profusely, be like, I'm going to show you something. It's going to horrify you, but we're going to make something fun at the end of it. But yeah, it's building a bridge from my hard drive to real life. And I think it's those steps that are just so empowering to be able to do now. And yeah, to just jump into, when I started out, as you said, I was drawing football players. And now being able to like get into a world where I can do more with my love of sports and gaming and design. It's just been, yeah, just so fun.
Well, let's wrap up with what is inspiring you these days? Is there anything you're reading, playing, or watching besides football that's feeding your creative brain?
I am all in right now on Dungeons and Dragons. I
Oh,
have gone both feet fully submerged in this universe, and it's a small obsession or a big obsession. Every waking moment is designing something in that universe. It's listening to people run through these campaigns and thinking about and playing campaigns with a local group at the moment. It started off just trying to immerse into like the mindset of to be able to design accurately for that space and that fan group, to converting myself into accidentally just being fully consumed with a amazing world. Like it's so rich in mechanics and stories, and since the 80s it's been building and evolving and expanding. To just join it now and try to absorb everything, it's so fascinating and been so fun.
do you have a favorite character that you like to be?
I started out as basic as I could with a fighter. I was just like, I want to hit something with a sword and not have to learn about spells. But with all characters, there's the mechanics and sophistication of them to complement everything. It's the design of that world that I can see all of the values in now this character that I'm building and evolving to work in that space. So I think it's just been a fascinating lesson in like the most wide spanning sophisticated set of interconnected rules that you can experience, and there's something like really appealing to my nerdy sense in that's caught me, absolutely caught me.
I love it. Yeah, it just makes me think of I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Games That Built Us. And there's a whole episode that touches on role playing games, and Dungeons and Dragons is one of those things. And since you're obsessed, you might want to go watch that. It's a quick episode. I think it's like 30 minutes, but it's really fascinating. It talks about the development of role playing games and like where does it come from and how did it go from a tangible game like physical Dungeons and Dragons to like the games like Zelda and Final Fantasy that we know today, and the worlds that get built around it.
Yeah, it's the world building, I think, is just so interesting. I love Hideo Kojima's worlds that he creates, and I just get obsessed and drawn into these absolute pieces of fantasy that have no right to exist. I just love like attaching myself to that and just drinking in that new universe. So yeah, that's where I am right now, is completely rewiring my brain away from real life into this next universe.
Oh, well, I can't wait for the next LinkedIn post that talks about Jordan, the Dungeon Master.
It's coming.
Jordan, this has been a real pleasure. And for those that want to follow your work as well as CampoV, tell us where we can find all of the info.
My website, I try to keep that up to date with projects that I've done and enjoyed. That's jordansheldrick.com. And then on top of that, find me on LinkedIn. I always post about interesting things that I've seen or projects that I've undertaken over there. But yeah, and you'll find links to CampoV over there if you want to hop in and give it a little go.
Well, thanks so much for coming and taking us through like your whole world, how you think about things, how AI has been able to assist you to bring some of your ideas that have been sitting on the shelf to life, and then what's exciting you next. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun to talk.
I need to put the campfire out for now, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. Come hang out with us on Instagram at creativecamp.pro. Drop us your questions, share your thoughts, and tag us in your stories. The more people we gather around the fire, the better the conversation gets. If you'd like to support the show, you can buy us a coffee, sign up for the newsletter, or work with us one-on-one. You can check out all of our offers at creativecamp.pro. We'll stoke the fire again real soon. Until then, keep creating, keep connecting, and I'll see you next time around the campfire.